So your team watches what you do every single day, whether you think they do or not. And they're either going to, they're only going to rise up to whatever you said as an example. And if you're growing, if you're pushing, if you're talking about, I'll listen to this book, I'll listen to this podcast, here's what I do during lunch, here's how I reset, then they'll continue to grow that way. But if you don't, they're not going to grow that way.
Hey everyone, welcome to Crossroads Conversations with the Lewis Brothers, where we aim to share real stories about running a successful family business, working through adversity, and pouring back into the community that keeps our doors open. We're your hosts, Taylor, Matt, and Shelby, and we'll bring you relevant local business advice and automotive insights that are sure to change the way you look at running a business, and may even throw in a plug for you to do business with us.
Welcome back, everybody, to this week's podcast, episode 45, Crossroad Conversations with the Lewis Brothers. We're your hosts, the Lewis Brothers. This week, we're talking about the idea of the comfort zone. Not getting hung up in your comfort zone, but actually the art of intentional discomfort. How leaders push themselves and their teams to grow in and out and past that comfort zone. How that leads to growth, how that leads to finding problems and issues, and how you grow through that. So we'll fully unpack that, go through and what makes sense, what we've learned, and what we think we should do moving forward. So we'll fully unpack that.
That's going to be a fun subject to go over. Now, before we do that, if you missed last week's episode 44, where we got to go beyond the listen, it was kind of our greatest hits so far that we talked about, each little snippets of some of the most responded to podcasts we've done so far about creating powerful teams, the culture, managing difficult employees, keep the inventory moving. That's a favorite of mine. Is the customer always right?
No.
And then even additional subjects we went over. So if any of those you're like, hey, I'm in the middle of that right now and I could use some advice, some help, go back and listen to episode 44 where we covered all those subjects again, and then even told you which episode to go back to get the entire unabridged version.
Absolutely. Hey, and diving in, always check us out online at lewissuperstore.com, where you can see all the freshest trades and everything that we have to offer online. But transition, what did we drive today? What did we walk? What's fresh, new, that's on the lot?
What's going on? What'd you find out there?
We've got the new Expeditions that have come in. I just have to highlight this one because they've come in. They're awesome. Haven't been able to keep them on the ground. I've been waiting on this one. We've had the Trimmer, we've had the Platinum, we've had the Active.
You got something new?
It's kind of the OG. I like to throw it back to almost like the Eddie Bauer days, but it's different than Eddie Bauer. It's the King Range that we always talk about, but it's in the Expedition now.
Oh, I didn't know if it was going to come out in the new model or not.
It is in there. It has sinister bronze wheels, which are perfect to match with the bronze bottom two-tone on the Expedition. It is bad to the bone looking in the ultimate luxury. It's the best of both worlds with the Old West saddle interior that has every fine detail made. It is a cool rig. Come check it out. We're getting it cleaned up to be put on the showroom.
Inspired by the big King Ranch down in Texas.
Largest private-owned ranch in the U.S.
Yeah, so you can have a part of that while you're driving down the road.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool. So come check that out. Let's get into this week's episode where we talk about, kind of getting discomfort. Kind of getting out of your comfort zone. That's necessary in order to grow.
Yeah.
But it's not what everybody wakes up in the morning saying, what can I do that'll make me uncomfortable? As humans, we get into that phase of comfort, and we like to hit the cruise control. We do, and I know I'm guilty of that. I've put myself in plenty of uncomfortable or discomfort situations, but then you kind of get comfortable in that discomfort because you've tried something new, you created a new habit, and then you get comfortable again. So it's like this cycle.
Let me tell you in reference to that of in the comfort zone. So we've talked about it before, a book that we've read by Dan Martell, How to Buy Back Your Time. And so he talks about things, if you can scale something that you're doing, that someone else can do that for you. And in depth that you color code things that you do, green, yellow, and red. And you need to make sure that you don't pre-allocate something that you really love to do. Right? Got to keep your heart in it. But what happened, he said, if you are buying back your time and then with your time you bought back, you go sit on the beach you're doing it incorrectly.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you bought back your time and you've delegated everything out, and then you're just like kicked back, like, let's see what's on Netflix. Like, no. The whole idea was so now that you could work on the business, and that gets you into that next uncomfortable zone because you don't know. We haven't been there before. What does that look like? What will that cost? What turmoil will that bring?
Yeah.
So when you said that, I was like, yeah, that's
it. So the question there in the filter, we talk about filters like you run through in your brain, is if you hand something off to somebody else that somebody else could do, it doesn't require your talent level to do. It's in order to free up your time to work on something at a higher level that even gets a bigger return on your investment.
Yeah.
If you replace that with just nonsense, you might as well just be a silent investor.
right.
You know? So that's a great point. I want you guys to think about this. And there's three things here. We talk about comfort zone. That's pretty easy to define. Like comfort zone is like once we get to like where it feels like a well-oiled machine, which we all aspire to do. Okay, and that doesn't mean throw out the machine when it's running well. That could be the comfort zone. But then you have growth zone and panic zone.
Yeah.
Now, those two could be confused out there when you start talking about getting discomfortable.
I think they coexist, right?
You could take that word discomfort and you could point it towards growth or you could point it towards panic, and it would make sense. But you got to understand what we're talking about here is growth zone. It's not comfortable when it's panic mode and building's on fire or 5 people didn't show up for work today or the wheel fell off the car or whatever else. That's a fight or flight, fix it in the moment. That's not discomfort for growth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you guys dive into that on when you're discomfort, but it's equaling growth versus being discomfort because you're in the hamster wheel and you haven't fixed it.
Yeah, I think, going to the growth stage, I can dive into that. We'll relate that to whenever we opened up this store over here.
Sure.
It was like, and everyone was asking, hey, how's it going? How's it going? How's it going? It was over that. And at the end of the day, you just felt whipped. Like you had never been whipped before, like you'd ran a race you hadn't prepared for. And we were as prepared as what we thought we needed to be. But it was every single day, it was stretching you farther and farther and farther. And it wasn't in a bad way. We could see down the road that this was building us to something greater. So that's a really good example of a growth zone that we were stuck in moving over to this new location.
There's something about that though. Like, and you say when we moved over here and there was new opportunity of let's up the KPIs or hire new people and delegate. That was the thrill of the hunt, So no longer was so much the thrill of just, and don't hear me wrong, of just helping one person, one consumer have a good experience, right? Like you want that to happen every single time without fail, but you want to help create the process that allows every customer to have it. So at the end of those days, and those days are less now, but they're still there of that, oh my gosh, what was that? There was still really good fulfillment within your heart. Of like, whoo, I'm whipped and it was good. Like we unpacked a lot of stuff. And I'm not talking physically unpacked, but actually like, oh, hadn't seen that before. Take note of it. Like, oh, okay, that was too many. That wasn't enough. Whatever it was. So that was good. And so you could feel the growth.
I think that's probably a great indicator of, hey, you feel whipped, but was it growth or was it panic? Because now I've been there before too. I've been whipped at the end of the day, and like, did we accomplish anything?
And I think I like to relate that to physical things. I've been in running races that you're in discomfort zone. You're past the lactic threshold.
Yep.
Heart rate is, you can feel the heart rate on your tongue, in your ears.
Yeah.
Like you can feel it in your hair. What am I
doing?
Like what in the heck? But you're up towards the front, or you know that you're passing a goal that you've worked on before, and so it's worth it.
Yeah,
right? It's worth it, and you just keep going. When you finish, you're like, that was good. That hurt. And then there's been on the other side what I call the panic zone, and you're like, I didn't train enough for this. I wasn't prepared. I didn't have a game plan. I didn't let everyone else know how to help. And at the end, you're like, that was awful.
Yep.
Like, I kind of felt the same, but one, you felt that same because you kept pushing and you were going faster and more efficient. The other way, you felt that way because you weren't prepared for it. And that's the panic zone of like, like Muhammad Ali says, or one of those guys says, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
Right? Like, do you have a plan so when you get punched in the mouth, you have a plan?
Mm-hmm.
Let's not mistake this, though, and the audience doesn't need to think that we don't ever go through the panic zone.
Oh, no, it happens.
Because usually it takes the panic zone to identify a growth area.
Yeah.
So I know, like, when I'll end up at the end of the day and I'm whipped, and all I did was just keep the pieces and the glue, like, together to not go backwards.
Yeah.
And then, like, after my emotions settle down, and it might be the next morning after I've slept, then it's like, okay, let me unpack that. What do I do to make sure that we don't get in that panic zone again, and we transition to growth zone?
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I didn't learn from the first time. I didn't unpack it, right? And I think we have realized that growing up through generations in our business, that more often than not, because of just fight or flight, that our business has been in just survival mode.
Yes.
Right? And hasn't been able to step away or to allocate to the proper people to work on growth zone.
I'm going to say this, and, we're blessed to have a fantastic family and great mentors, my dad, uncle, our grandfather, great-grandfather. But this might resonate with some people out there, so I'm going to be a little transparent here. Some of y'all may have been in situations like we were, that their parents had to learn the hard way, the hard knocks.
Yeah,
and
both ways.
Nothing's wrong with hard work, okay? But they expect you to go through the same walk and fall on your face the same way, just like they did to get where they are. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we've identified is, let's share that with each other. If I've gone back through something being the oldest, I want to share it with both of you guys so that then you're elevated up. That doesn't mean you're going to now not go through any, trials and any panic zones and growth modes, but hopefully it's at a different level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So then you take back over here and it's, still go through that hard knocks, but don't start at ground zero.
Let's not all go down the same path, right? You take the left hallway, I'll take the right hallway, you take the center hallway.
Yep.
And then we'll reconvene in the middle and say, hey, what'd you learn?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it is so silly for every one of us to go through the same trials and tribulations.
Just to say, well, that's how I did it.
It's like we're learning on one of our still in construction projects that we thought that we were saving crazy amount of money by putting up an old building that we had. And I'm just being so transparent here. And yesterday we had another meeting that was another couple $100,000 that they were like, here's what you need. And it's like, no, the building's already put together. We can see, just slap a roof on it. And they're like, no, here's what we need. And as we were walking back, because we're not allowed to drive 26 acres, we just have to walk it all. I'm like, we should just take the whole building down. So what the cost is to repair this stupid building, you could buy a brand new building, and they could probably do it in just the same amount of time. We'd have a building from now instead of the building from the 70s.
Well, you talk about a growth zone there. I had to pause during that meeting, and you had to take over because I was getting ready to pull out the 50-pound sledgehammer and the chainsaw at the same time.
And so then that's of understanding different things, because I could see it, and I was like, no, this will be pointless. Like, this will be pointless, because he was tomahawking the resource that was there. He's like, hang on, I thought we were going to be presented something, and then we could make a decision. And the guy's like, hi, I'm Fred. I just wanted to get an introduction with our company. It's like, we are way past speed dating. We're wanting to know, do you want to have kids together, right? And so Matt was just like, oh my. So it was like, pull up your proposal. They pulled up their proposal. I was like, it is how much? And I was like, I didn't say a word. Like, Matt, just sit back. I was just like, sir, how quick can you do this? Do you see that there would be any other costs that would come up? Is there any, as a business owner, any way that we could cut costs within that without cutting quality? And he's like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. It's like, and then Matt was back on the ship. He's like, okay, I went downstairs, got some oxygen. He's like, okay, so how quick can you get that done?
But I think that's a great example. We didn't even plan this, but that's a great example of when you have somebody trusted on your team, like maybe you don't have 3 brothers in the business, but you got a right-hand person.
Yeah.
Or you got somebody else close to goes to business partner. And you got to allow them, when you start feeling yourself going in that panic zone, at that point in time, I just shut my mouth to kind of like just digest it. And you jumped in, okay? It didn't take much time, 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I was able then to reset and go, okay, it is what it is. We're in the middle of this dookie.
This is our only option.
How do we get out?
We chose this.
So that was in the moment. We went from panic zone to growth zone.
Oh, yeah.
And move forward.
That's a good point, that you can shift halfway through a situation of panic to move to growth mode.
But in order to do that, you have to allow yourself to reset. We've talked about that in other episodes of how do you reset. When you feel the kettle's boiling, okay, it's starting, it's steaming out the top. How do you do a quick reset? And sometimes it's 30 seconds, 2 or 3 minutes, but the outcome is so much better.
That's so big, because y'all both hit the nail on the head. But not only learning how we do things differently, you learn even in that. So in future projects that we work on, that we can be able to tell, because we've learned so much just in this 2 years of that we didn't think we would change, because you analyze the fire out of every whiteboard that you had from your office to the next office, and then would share some with us, and we'd be like, oh, no. So we thought we'd vetted it as much as we needed to.
Sure.
But it's amazing in the 2 years that we've been in actual construction, how much will change before our next project.
Yeah, from the first building they built to now the 6th building.
Yes.
All that we've learned is like, no, you need to step out here, 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 and here. And we've paid millions of dollars, frankly, for architectural plans.
Yep.
And we spent 10 years of research, went to 100 different buildings, but we hadn't built one of our own. And so from the first to the 6th, we said, no. Scratch all that. Do not put a dishwasher here. You need 4 Cat 6 lines per desk. You need to have this. Do not do that. Do not do an open ceiling. Do not put a high efficiency HVAC system. Just give me one that works.
Yeah.
All these things that we've learned. And so that went from panic or pain to growth.
Yep.
That's so good. And just, I'm going to spoil this a little bit, but at some point in time in the next 12 months, I'm printing all y'all diplomas. We got a very expensive education in construction, but, we're getting there. We're working on a doctorate now. Okay, so let's switch from comfort, growth, and panic. We gave some great examples there of identifying what those are. Now let's talk about the next part. And we were, frankly, in this when we were across town.
Yeah.
When we start, why complacency is a silent killer for businesses, especially long-standing ones. Now, what I'm not saying there is, obviously, if you're losing money or you're in the red, okay, it's just not working out, that's pretty easy. The ones that get you are the silent killer. So you're doing well. You've maintained where you were at last year. Maybe you're up just a little bit. Maybe you added an employee, or you redid the bathroom, or something small.
Yeah.
Something small. But you're really not, like, you're bragging about it, or maybe not, but you feel good inside. But you're really not challenging yourself. Your business is doing good, but not great.
Yeah.
Because, and it's easy to do that if you've worked on a business 10 years, 5 years, 15 years, and got it to that point, you're like, okay, it's hitting on all cylinders. It's smooth. And you kind of step back a little bit and go, look what we did.
Yeah.
This thing's moving. It becomes a silent killer.
It does in a lot of different ways. Like your employees, they see stagnation of things not changing. And so, like, we kind of got to keep our ear to the ground of even still know, like, our key system. People are like, this, and this. And we're like, and you have to fact check it, because otherwise, if you bought it all, like, you'd never be able to
Buy yourself out of
anything
business.
else.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful of that employees see that you're listening and that you're responsive. And it doesn't have to be their solution, but it's just, I heard you and here's what we're doing. The other side is the customers, right? You might sit in your same car every single day. You drive to and from work and wear the same clothes every single day, and you don't really realize that they're overly faded or they stink or they've started to got something wrong,
Sure.
right? Brand new person shows up, comes in your business, and they're like, right? Yeah. So if you get stagnant, and Here's the thing, if like we talked about in that growth zone, at the end of the day, if you ran that hard race and that hard day of discomfort things, and you're not like, I love that, it's okay. You can still be a business owner, but you don't need to be the head leader of growth and opportunity. You need to have a operations manager. You need to have that, and you can support them. But you have to have somebody that's hungry to say, what's next? Well, what's our next thing we're chasing? Okay, I delegated that. Now let me go find a new problem solution or process that I can make better, more efficient, or a new opportunity for revenue. And if that's not you, I'm not saying you have to sell your business unless you have a really good business and you want to sell it, then come see us and we'd love to take a look at it. But find someone who is passionate about it. Chances are they're on your team somewhere and they'll bring a whole new level of fire.
I want to unpack that a little bit more, because you talked about the race analogy is a great analogy, because when you're at the end of it, you're just whipped, or a big day and you're just whipped. Now, if you're whipped and you're not excited about your performance, okay, whether it's a race or what this month's business looked like or whatever it is, and you're whipped and not excited about the performance, if your mind then, like let's say within a 24-hour period, if your mind then goes to what could I have done different to change the outcome, I'm okay that you didn't have the performance you wanted, as long as your mind's going, how do I fix that so I have a different outcome next time?
Yeah.
Then you're still in the right business.
Yeah.
If you just keep doing the same thing and expect different results, or you're just
Blaming
pissed
other
about
people.
it, blaming other people, the industry, it's everybody else's fault, it's time for you to do something else. You don't have the passion.
Yeah.
And we talk about this in some other episodes, and I've got to talk about this at the U of A before. We say if you're not passionate about what you do, you need to find something else to do, because that's what drives you through the not so good times. That's what keeps you motivated when you're like, this isn't fun.
Yeah.
Or the hard times.
Yeah.
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 So that's good for sure. So let's talk about the psychological benefits of healthy challenge. When you start looking about resilience, adaptability, and increased capacity. And when we talk about increased capacity, I do want you to think about, we'll go back to what you talked about in Dan's book, is a lot of times to free yourself up, you have to remove other things. You have to delegate those. You have to prune to get a bigger blossom out of it. So when you look for increased capacity, it's not what else can I put on my shoulders, it's what small things can I move off so I can put larger, more meaningful things on my plate to continue us to go forward.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to look at those things and you just start ranking them.
Yeah.
Like ranking your daily tasks and daily responsibilities. And are you holding on to something just because, like, if you feel important because you're the only one that can run a report or the only person that can unlock or lock your door,
You've locked yourself.
you locked or unlocked yourself to death. Like, the quicker that you can release that, like I was thinking about something earlier, and there's a system that only one person knows who the contact is for the system that a lot of people account for.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, why doesn't everyone have that in their Rolodex so that when there's an issue? And I'm not saying this is why this person hasn't released it, but you feel like I'm not important anymore because I've given that power away. It's like, no, you get to stay important because you keep moving the peg of what you're getting to work on, and then that gets to circle back around inadvertently of how you're helping them grow some more. So don't put your ownership in, I'm the only one that can do that.
I think a good checkup for everybody out there is the key example. And I heard Craig Groeschel talk about this with all of his churches too. Show me the keys you carry around. And if you're a leader in the business, if it's anything except just the key to the front door, you have not empowered others. Now, I got a drawer full of keys in my office, okay? It just in case, because it makes me feel comfortable of, like, if something happened, I could change the toilet paper out, the key
But
for
they
the dispenser
don't need
there.
to be the only.
But everybody else is empowered with those keys.
Yeah.
So the only key I carry around is the one that goes to the front door.
Yeah.
And I don't have to be the one to lock it and unlock it every day. It doesn't mean I'm not working hard.
Yeah.
It just means I've empowered others to do that. If you can't give up the key to the janitor room, You know what I mean? Or the
Yes.
copier paper or any of that stuff like that. And some of y'all are cringing out there.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I'm like, you really, like, oh man, you're just, like, I promise you someone can properly log who gets paper,
They
properly
can.
log who gets your supplies. There's someone
Better than you can. You think you're doing
oh yeah,
so good,
you ain't doing
but
good.
you're gonna
I'm like,
miss all
Taylor,
of it.
why are you, I
Yes.
hammer Taylor for certain reasons. I'm like, why do they keep coming to you? And I'm like, hey, what are these people doing? I'm like, we need to relinquish control of that. And those things are just like, why are we the one that have to give out the tissue boxes? That's stupid on us.
Because we haven't empowered and
Right.
trusted on
Right?
them.
And so we've got to learn through those. Or like if you finally get to take a day off and somebody texts you like, hey, how can I get into here? It's like, didn't I teach you that?
I think that's part of it, and I'll hit on this one last piece here on the growth zone, and then we'll move on. But I heard somebody else talk about that. I just changed this in the past few years. If I come back from vacation or even a meeting, then I'm gone a few days, I don't invite people in my office to give me a rundown of what happened while I was gone. Because if they have to come back and unload all the small things that went on, why have I empowered them?
Yeah.
You know, I want to feel good about that. I want to come back and feel good. I don't want any manager to say, man, I'm so glad you're back. You wouldn't believe, it's just better when you're here and you wouldn't believe everything that went on. I was like, that's not comforting to me. You're telling me don't go spend any time with my family, don't ever leave here, and I haven't done a good job training and empowering you.
Which is so tricky and backwards of us, of how we were raised and just school of hard knocks. In the past couple of years, we've really had to transition out of that.
We have.
You know, because the next core we'll go into is leading by example. I'm not going into it, but just saying we've always done that. But then you like, Shelby, why did you move the whole inventory of the Ford cars? It's like, I don't know. No one else would do it. It's like, well,
'Cause
did
I'm
you
the best
ask
at
anybody? It's like, yeah, I asked a couple people. They said they were busy. I got tired of it, and I did it myself. It's like, well, you fool. You know, Jimmy's been back there. Larry's been back there eating his lunch, saying he doesn't have anything to do. So that's something we had to change.
That is for sure. All right, here we go. Here's our fun fact for the day. Check this one out.
All right.
Which incredibly grueling multi-continental race,
So,
first run in 1907, involved early automobiles and their brave drivers traversing vast distances of unpaved roads, deserts, mountains, demonstrating the extreme endurance and discomfort required for these early vehicles and their crews.
is that NASCAR? What
Indy
was that?
500, Le Mans 24 Hours, the Rally Monte Carlo, the Paris Motor Challenge. Don't have a clue.
I don't know, but you got Indy 500, Le Mans 24 Hours, the Rally Monte Carlo, or the Peking to Paris Motor Challenge back in 1907. We'll come back to that one. All right, so next part of the discomfort is leading by example. Creating personal discomfort for leadership evolution. Right? So first you need to experience, and the experience kind of travels with people seeing you do it, and then you get to share examples. Same thing we're doing today in these first 30 minutes that we've said, hey, here's what we've learned by doing it, right? So identifying personal comfort zones in leadership. So what's your, like, hey, no worries, like, somebody does this on this day, and then you throw a wrench and say, actually, that means at this time. And they're like, whoa, why'd you do that, right? Like, you got to mix things up like that. Like, you show up on your day off, and then you see, are people parked in random areas,
Sure.
and people not where they're supposed to be, and not wearing what they're supposed to wear, or whatever, right? Then you find those comfort zones. So kind of talk through about creating personal discomfort for leadership evolution. Like, what's your guys' thoughts on that?
So I'm going to take you through a couple stages here rapidly. But when you first start a business, and if you're listening out there and you just opened this past year or last month or 6 months ago, you're right now in the just grind it out and build it. And nothing's wrong with that. Like it takes that. We all went through that. That gets you to the next level. You identify, because you're not in any comfort zone. You're trying to survive.
Yep.
Okay. Now let's talk about when you've matured your business. You're 3, 5, 10 years, or in our case, 79 years in. It's very hard to identify a comfort zone in leadership if you always stay in your bubble.
Yep.
Because in our example, now we have the three of each other to hold each other accountable and call each other out. But besides the three of us, and like our dad and our CFO, she will too, nobody else is going to call us out. An employee is not going to say, hey, you're getting comfortable. We're not improving. They're not going to do that.
No.
So the best thing that has happened for us is make sure we have outside influences to compare against.
Yeah.
And we talked about this is show me the 5 closest people to you, the average of them, and you'll be the sum of that average.
Yep.
So if you want to know whether you're in a comfort zone or not, go find people that are at the next level where you want to go and look at what they're doing. And then how does your process, how do your daily activities, how do your habits stack up to them? You know, we've got dealer groups we do that with. And then I'm just going to tell you guys, because some of you are like, well, I don't have that. And where do you find that? I'm going to tell you the majority of people that I listen to or read about or that influence me, they don't know who I am. But they've pushed me to identify comfort zones and to change habits.
That's definitely diving into like daily self-improvement of being able to go into and build off of that. Then I love that you pulled that out of, hey, they don't know you. It's not like I've had to set aside a time and be able to talk to them and wait for the perfect opportunity. No, it's taking your time, whether it's your commute, whether it's at night whenever you go get in bed, those downtime pieces of waking up in the morning, and it's inserting that correct criteria of reading, of podcast, of morning devotionals, anything else in there that is just supercharged and kick-started, completely changes your whole outlook of what you need to be doing. But then it pushes you because it's so easy to stay in that comfort zone because it's easy to do. You can come in here with your eyes closed, flip the switch on, and you know, hey, I'm going to be able to do this.
I think the really good thing, to your point, Taylor, is to do a fact check. So if you listen to those people, a group or a book or whatever it is, and if you're sitting there listening, there's 2 reactions you'll have to. There's probably 3, and the third one is no reaction. So we're just going to talk actual reactions. So if one reaction is, they don't know me, they don't know my schedule, they don't know how hard my business is, that is a negative reaction, and that means you are not looking for growth, you are not looking for opportunity, and you're not going to make it.
So true.
If you are saying, no, they don't know me, you know, like Dan Martell, I watched a YouTube video yesterday when I was eating my lunch, and it was, you know, a big thing on YouTube right now is a day in the life of. And he was in Austin, Texas with his family. He's from Canada, and he started his day at 4 a.m., which I loved, and he's really good at his calendar.
Sure.
And so he had all of his calendar, and he flew to like 3 different places. He recorded 2 podcasts. He did 2 different speeches. The funny thing that I love so much that we talk about all the time, his guy interviewing was like, hey, the second speech coming out, this is 250 people. We're going to be there in 10 minutes. It'll be 5 minutes before you get on stage. She's like, do you have your deck ready to go? He's like, yeah. He's like, what's it going to go over? He's like, it's the exact same one I just went over, right? It's like, okay, that makes so much sense. Like, stop reinventing the wheel. And then he finally got home by like 10 o'clock at night. He was flying home, and he FaceTimed his family. He's like, hey, I'll be home, da-da-da. And people are like, how do you have so much energy? And he's like, you don't have or don't have energy. You create energy.
Sure.
So if there's excitement in it, you've created the energy. So in your reaction, if you're like, they don't know me, I've got kids, or my commute's longer, or my employees don't understand, then you're in negative mindset. You're going to have to do a state change. But if you're on the other side, it's like, wow, I can cram a little more in there.
Sure.
I could wake up a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
I could multitask. Instead of going to Arby's and this, and this, I could pre-prepare my meals, and then when I'm eating my meals, I could listen to something. I could speak with a couple of my employees. I could get to know some people. So in those, that'll quickly tell you, dang, who really am I and what am I after?
That's really good, those 2 different mindsets. And I can remember having different employees that would come ask me for advice, you know, to help them grow. And as soon as I would start talking, they would start talking. And they ended up talking more than I did.
But they ask you for advice?
But they asked me for advice.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there going, Are they asking me for advice, or they just came to download on me on why they couldn't do that and how I didn't understand their situation? Guess what? Maybe not the next time, but the time after that, then when they asked me to talk to them again, we started off the conversation, are you here to learn, or are you here to try to explain to me why you can't do it?
Yeah.
And that happens. So I'm telling you, too, if you get somebody's ear, if you're fortunate enough to see somebody in person and have a conversation with them, please, please, please don't talk. Or just shut your mouth. You're there to learn, not try to prove how successful you are. Because the successful person, they're not going to battle. It's not a contest with them. They're going to move on because they understand the value of their time.
Yeah.
The other thing you're talking about, Dan, there, and trying to figure out how can you fit more in. I love going back to the book about atomic habits. Because James Clear talks about in there on finding those things. And no different than you took something as simple as lunch and you go, okay, now when I'm eating lunch in front of me, I'm watching a YouTube, whatever it is, that's relatable to my business or my personal growth. So I'm habit stacking that. Taylor, when you're talking about driving or in the morning, that's where you can find these 5, 10, 15-minute deals.
Just multiply.
Every once in a while, can you go to a seminar that's a 2 or 3 day?
Sure.
Yeah, but that's not factual that you do that every day or every month. So you've got to find these small little things. And what we get into in the next part here is the influence you have over your team. So your team watches what you do every single day, whether you think they do or not. And they're either going to... They're only going to rise up to whatever you said as an example. And if you're growing, if you're pushing, if you're talking about, I'll listen to this book, I'll listen to this podcast, here's what I do during lunch, here's how I reset, then they'll continue to grow that way. But if you don't, they're not going to grow that way. And some people will stay. They'll stay. Some people will leave.
Yeah.
You know who will leave your organization? The top performers.
Yeah.
Because they want to be a part of a team that is pushing them to grow and to get uncomfortable to find the next level.
Yeah, most certainly. And some of them were going to give you a little bit of superficial shade or like, dude, I sell you 25 cars a month. Why are you pushing me? And what they're saying is, I mean, like, don't you think that some of the top coaches for some of the top quarterbacks or top running backs said, hey, that was amazing. I'm going to give you the ball game. Can I count on you again? He's like, I just broke 1,000 yards. It's been 6 games. He's like, so can you help us with this or not? Right? And he's like, yeah, you know you can count on me. Right? So they need a little bit of recognition, but they also need some push for some growth. And I don't want you to listen to us and be like, okay, these guys are different. These guys are Superman. I need you to know that, like, probably through a majority of the construction before we moved over here, one of my largest stumbling blocks of not getting up early and not exercising before work and not even signing up for any races. I went like on a hiatus for years, coming off of a super tough race. And then I was like, I'm too busy.
Yeah.
And my excuse is I was in the bad mindset. I'm too busy. Like, we have to run the business, and then we have to work on building the business and all these construction meetings. And I know you guys were part of that as well. Like, I'm too busy.
Got too much.
Somewhere in there, the switch finally flipped over, and it was like, no, you are too busy to not prioritize getting yourself right before you try to lead the entire team. And so then when that whole thing was like, I created more energy, right? And then I really have it stacked. And then people are just like, how do you do that? How do you do that? And hopefully it's inspiring someone and someone and someone. It's like, I know you could have excuses, but you need to turn them into motivation.
Yeah. You know what I love about talking about atomic habits, habit stacking, everything else? So many people have problems with this. They go to a conference, they get so jacked up, and they'll buy everything. And it's like a water hose overload of... It's coming full funnel down the pipe at you. Habit stack, have everything set up in there, but just straight focus on 1 to 2 things that's really going to help you dive into and double down on that to be able to really dive into it. More times than not, we'll see people that get that. A salesperson that just goes off and he's like, I've signed up for this training, this training, this training, this training. You'll go back in 90 days. They don't remember anything from a single one of the trainings.
No.
So don't overdo it and don't step past the boundary. Start with just the car drive into and from work. That makes all the difference in the world.
You need people in your life, though, that will call you out because we're all human. And we might get on a streak of business or self-growth or health or whatever it is. And then we'll either plateau or we'll come up with those excuses. I was in the same boat. And, where I wasn't working out, I wasn't running because I was like, I got to give that up to work on the business and the construction and all this stuff. And then finally my wife, she's like, you need to go run. You need to go exercise, which meant you're not being the best version of yourself.
Right.
And if you hear people talk about it, they talk about the pitcher of water all the time. They're like, if you're constantly pouring the pitcher of water out, okay?
Pouring into people.
At some point in time, there's no more water in there.
Yeah.
So if you want to keep being able to pour into other people in your business and influence others, at some point in time, you got to turn the pitcher back over.
Yep.
You got to go back to the faucet and refuel it, because then your outcome will be better instead of sitting there shaking and trying to get another drip out.
Yep.
Pause for a second, take care of yourself, refuel yourself, refill yourself up so you have an entire another pitcher to keep pouring out into your employees and in your business.
That's really big.
So you have to, and people talk about, we talk about the airplane thing all the time. Why do they make the announcement of, hey, in an event of emergency, mask will deploy from overhead. Put your mask on first. And you think about that, especially as a parent, you're like, no, I'm going to take care of my kids. You can't take care of others if you're not in the state to be able to do it.
Yep.
One other example I got to give about discomfort, because it just came to me. If you look at some of the greats, I'm going to talk about football for a second. If you look at some of the greats that have achieved massive records, so you take Peyton Manning, okay? You take Tom Brady. You take two iconic quarterbacks that had won Super Bowls and MVPs and records and yards. They kind of got in a comfort zone. And to push themselves out of their comfort zone, what did they do? They went to a new team.
Yeah.
They said, let me see if I can repeat and make another team successful. You talk about getting uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
They completely removed themselves and went to another team to see if they could grow there too.
That's a really good point. There's some notes here that says strategies for self-imposed challenge. So some of the strategies for self-imposed challenge is volunteering for unfamiliar tasks.
Okay.
Things that you don't outwardly or inwardly know how to do. Seeking critical feedback. Be careful who you seek that from.
Sure.
Learning new skills that feel daunting. Or embracing vulnerability. So all of those things kind of help you impose challenges to see what discomfort do I need to see or experience and able to grow.
The critical feedback, I want to give a pointer there. Seeking critical feedback is a great example. You just make sure, here's your checks and balances. The person that is giving you feedback, are they at a level where you're trying to get to?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you don't ask somebody for financial advice that's going through bankruptcy.
No.
You know what I mean?
I heard that something just like that yesterday in a video I was watching, and the guy said, so how do you go from millionaire to billionaire? And he's like, well, who do you get your advice from? He's like, if you're still getting your advice from a millionaire,
yeah.
He said,
get there.
Millionaires create millionaire-style businesses, and they create processes and systems. He said billionaires create brands. He said, so it's just a whole nother step. So you have to be careful of who you're getting that critical feedback.
I got to give in on a simpler version even there too, because that's good. But it's hard to wrap your mind around $1 billion. When we first started running, we got around people that were doing 5Ks, and we got advice on like, how do you put a 5K together? How do you do this? How do you do that? And then we got around people that were doing half marathons, and then it was a marathon, and then it was an ultra, and then it was 100-miler. So we kept moving and getting advice from people that were where we were wanting to go.
Correct.
When we got to the 100-miler, we weren't asking the 5K people anymore for advice.
You got to give them advice now.
Yeah.
And you had to be careful where you scaled that. But but yes, you didn't ask someone behind you how to go ahead of.
But so many people do that. I mean, I know it's a funny example, but how many people do that? They're asking their Uncle Buck, okay, for advice on investing, or should I buy this business?
Not gonna be good.
And Uncle Buck's having a hard time keeping a job down.
Yeah. All right, so we got that part figured out. All right, so go back to our fun fact quiz. Which incredibly grueling. The idea that it's automotive and that it is discomfort. Multi-continental race, first in 1907, involved early automobiles and their drivers traversing vast distances of unpaved road, deserts, and mountains. I would have said Baja, but it's not in here. Demonstrating the extreme endurance required for these early races. We had Indy 500. That's not it. Le Mans 24 hours race. Well, if you know Le Mans, it's all on pavement. Yeah. The Rally Monte Carlo, or the Peking to Paris Motor Challenge.
I would have gone Rally Monte Carlo, but I would have been wrong.
I've never heard of the Peking to Paris Motor Challenge, probably because it's over 100, almost 120 years old.
But our producer did.
Yeah.
We got great producers behind.
Yes, no doubt about that.
They found the good questions that we go through. I said Le Mans because just back in the day, I think it was like through cobblestone, everything else. It was pretty wild, but like really because it was long. Yeah, Tour de France. Yes, the Peking to Paris Motor Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was. Hey, diving into cultivating a growth culture, so nudging your team into productive discomfort. This is so big because you've got to be able to have that culture to be able to do that, but it's not like on-off switch, so you say, go do it. It's got to be able to shown to be able to how to do it. So showing your team how to do it in steps that makes them productive, efficient, and successful at that. So assigning stretch assignments, we kind of talked through building your KPIs, everything else in that. How do you do that, and how do you set your team in doing that?
I really like starting there with the data and the metrics because they don't lie. And if we can do it within our group organization and we're comparing the Springdale store and the Fayetteville stores in Farmington, and we can use that data, great. Or if we go to a 20 group and we can bring a page back from a composite from dealers all over. Mm-hmm. The data doesn't lie, and it opens your eyes to opportunity.
It's a segue.
It really is. What it does is it clicks from somebody going, I'm killing it, there's nothing I could improve on, to go, whoa, oh shoot, there's somebody else over here. Because you need the green light before you can start ever getting to go, what should we change? How should we grow?
Yeah.
So I think that's very important. You first have to establish KPIs, and then there's associations out there for every single business that you can get data from. Find somebody else in a totally different state that's not in your market. They'll share that information with you. You can share it with your team and go, here's what we're trying to achieve. Okay, we're not doing as well as we thought we would. Then the conversation, and you get to start nudging them on what can we change? How can we stretch? How can we achieve that?
I think that's really good. The stretch assignments. If you look at parts and service, they're generally steady eddy of X amount of technicians or X amount of employees to be able to have this fill rate, to be able to have this shop efficiency. And so they just get in the routine of those things. And so in some of our micro meetings, we say, well, what if? Right? Like, what if we adjusted the matrix like this? And what if we adjusted some of our high ticket items by not high take rate items in service, such as oil change, alignments? And we did a study with the company that studied all of our competition locally and then also nationally. What if we reduced the prices in some of those? And they were like, whoa, hold up. We're trying to make more money, not less money.
Yep.
And we said, no. This is the end caps, right? You have to make sure your money's on mark or they're going to bounce right out of the store. And so we stretched them a little bit with those assignments. And it was like, hey, let's find other matrix that maybe complement what you're doing. And how can we challenge the warranty company and all the other companies to help grow that? And so getting them out of their normal routine initially is like, what in the heck? But then they realize you're on the same team and it is for growth. We had that conversation in Parts Matrix, and they're like, that would take a lot of work. It's like, well, yeah, we're getting to it, but once you finally do it, isn't it plug and play? Like, once it's set up, you don't have to do anything with it? Like, yeah.
Like, how long do you reap the benefits of it?
Forever, right? And so wouldn't that be worth a day or two or three or a week or whatever? It's like, what? But they were really, really reluctant.
Well, that's
long. I was like, well, yeah, but if it meant that you're able to grow 1% into gross profit when you're trying to chase every single little percentage just to make the boat float, it's worthwhile.
Then let's flip over to creating a safe to fail, but not necessarily making your team feel okay with failing. I'm saying they're like,
yes,
that they're not necessarily okay to fail all the time, but hey, if you're running and gunning and running after this and you fall short, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about it.
I think the important part there is that they know that they have that leniency to be able to do it, and you're not going to chop their head off for it. Okay, they're not going to be called on the carpet. But the checks and balances of meeting, when you know you're going into that space, open communication happens there to help identify that.
Yeah, and we talked about those, like Walmart with all their different delivery types. They know at some point in time you can pull the plug. Right? Hey, this is a test. We're going to see how it goes. We're going to communicate a lot more than we normally would. And we're going to say, okay, don't throw out the entire process, but let's change it. It's like, we designed it like this, and I talked about that in our delivery process when I said, hey, I want to make sure there's a photo on every single delivery bag. And I was like, I don't really like that. We need to make sure the photos are in front of the store, right? And there's been 100 of those and when you deliver it to the working team, not in the design team, you have to be so confident and say this is exactly how we have to do it, right? Because they're the machines that make it work. But then you come back to it was like, hey, based on your guys' feedback and what we've seen, this doesn't work so well. Based on your feedback, here's how we'd like to try it next. And so you have to have the ability that it's safe to fail within these metrics.
So I want to give some encouragement to people out there, because maybe you're like, well, that's easy for you guys to say. You got multiple dealerships. It's easy for you to cross-compare all those metrics, multiple managers in the room, have that debate. What about for the person out there that owns their own HVAC company or their own plumbing company or roofing company or accounting firm or whatever? Can I tell you a really easy one to do? It's whatever you're after. Whatever you're after. Call your competition. Have your employees call them. Let's say you're in the HVAC business. You have a meeting and you take a handful of your employees, maybe 3 of them, and you say, I want you to call these 4 places and I want you to get a quote on doing X, Y, and Z. And you might even, we've done this before, we've paid for employees to get their vehicle serviced at a different dealership so they could firsthand see the experience. You know, if you got an HVAC business, you might have one of your employees and you pay for the bill. They call a competitor to come to their personal house to do a checkup on their HVAC system.
There's a lot to be learned, good or bad.
Both sides.
Service, process, pricing.
And if you have your employee do that, you talk about buy-in.
Yeah, because you don't have to explain it to them because they're the one that experienced it.
And then they come back and you'll pay for it all.
Yeah.
But the only requirement is they got to come back and give a report to the rest of the team.
Yeah.
So you can call. We do that on oil changes all the time.
Yep.
We're not the ones that call, Firestone and Walmart and Big O and everybody else. But we have our service advisors, because they're the ones answering the questions. They do a price check on how much for mount and balance of tires, how much for an oil change. And then they report it back and they're like, dang, we are highly competitive.
Yeah. And what was the price? How easy was it to get a hold of somebody? Did they answer all your questions? What's their schedule look like? Were they friendly on their phone? And then pricing is somewhere close to the bottom, right? And then they're like, they offered a lot more than we do. Right?
We do the same thing. We were trying to increase our market share on a model. So we're on Ram 1500s. So it's like, we got to grow our half-ton market in Rams. Why are we getting beat by X, Y, and Z? We took the dealers in the region in Texas and Oklahoma and Arkansas, and I took the managers and I said, okay, you get these 4, you get these 4, you get these 4. Send in internet leads to each one of them with your personal email, and then report back. Let's see, how do they handle the process? What do they provide you with? Where are we missing the mark?
Yep.
Anybody out there can do that for no charge.
Yep.
It's a really easy way to get buy-in of your culture and your team to realize that they might not be as good as they think they are.
Yeah. That's really good. Really good of cultivating culture, talking about it, leading by example. Awesome episode of diving into it there. Feeling the discomfort, growing the discomfort, and really being all in the middle of that. Y'all have anything else in there that adding in the middle?
That's a good discussion.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. I'm not going to hit you with a frequently asked question this week. But
I got one for you.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. Hit me with your most recently frequently asked question.
So I get asked by multiple people, especially business people, how do you manage 270 plus employees? I don't know how you do it. And let me tell you this, it's easier to do that than when I was trying to do 110, 120. Because of what we've talked about this, of empowering other people in your business and going off that 4 to 8 to 1 ratio.
Yeah.
Of where one person is only in charge of 4 to 8 people.
Yep.
And then we really started building org charts, which we never had, and flow charts. That's the way you do it.
That's really big. Shelby, you have any good frequently asked questions that's new, out of the ordinary?
No.
Then do you really like waking up at 4 o'clock?
I do. I do like the result of it.
No,
And
you
I
like the results.
I like the process of it. When my alarm goes off at 4:15, I'll tell you, just the other day, my alarm is set in my kitchen.
I wish I could hear mine in my kitchen.
We can work on an Ooga horn. So I have to get up quickly because I have a wife and 3 kids, a dog and a cat. So at 4:15, it scares the heck out of me. Like, I forget that it's going to go off. And I keep moving it. It used to be 5 a.m. and then it was at 4:30 and now it's at 4:15 because I'm like, it doesn't really feel any earlier, right? I can get more done. And so then I've committed. I packed my bag, but I'm not walking through my routine. So it's all ready. Like, my supplements are set up, all my stuff, my lunch is packed.
Can't fail.
You cannot
Coffee
fail.
machines
But the other day I did fail. That it was pouring down rain, and it was a Saturday, and I had mapped out a whole long run, and I knew such and such wasn't going to be there, and so it was just going to be me. The previous Saturday it stormed hard, and so I ended up running 20 miles on a treadmill, and that sucked. It was good for me. The running was good, and the mindset was good, but it sucked. And so it was storming again, and so I was like, you know what? I looked at the radar real quick, and my non-negotiable is don't get on your phone and social media, so just put them in my pocket and go. But I just looked at the storm because it was storming so bad, and I texted a guy, and we were going to run earlier. So this was actually at 3:15, and I texted him. He was like, hey, you running in this? He's like, no way. And I was like, okay. He's like, I'm going to get my long run later. I was like, well, we got treadmills. And he's like, nope. And I was like, dang it. So I set my alarm again for 4:45 and went and got in bed, but I put my phone next to my bed. I woke up at 7. I'd snooze that thing 100 times. So learn your process and don't deviate. So
Yes.
I thought my willpower was there, but it wasn't.
That's so good.
Good
Great,
stuff.
great episode today. Hey, make sure you always check us out at lewissuperstore.com and subscribe, like, send us some comments so we can be able to put the content in at crossroadsconversationpodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure and give it a like, share it with your friends and family, and visit our website to send us questions about what you would like to know about the automotive industry or family business in general. Who do you want to hear from? Send them our way, and we'll do our best to answer any questions that you have. Thank you again, and we'll see you in future shows.